How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the rebranded Tyler Isley LSN channel here on YouTube. This is my place to kind of go and talk about things that maybe get missed out on the Loudmouth Sports channel. Um, and today it's no small feat, and a lot of research has gone into this. So please, if you are tuning in, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Help us get to 100 subscribers here on this channel. Um, we're gonna have a bunch more content coming out. I can't wait to share with you guys what I have in plans. But today, it's all about the NBA coaching epidemic, coach firing epidemic, the continuity issues within the NBA, and this conversation has been sparked for a couple of years now. Of course, we've seen head coaches be fired after NBA title seasons, with very little time after to really, rebuild and time to take a look at where the accountability lies. Should it just be on the coaches? Should it be on general managers? Should it be on the front office? We're going to take a look at all those things, talk about all of them, and why it's so important. But I have plenty of examples here as well. And as we go through this show, I'm gonna bring them up case by case, discuss what happened, what changes happened through the rosters, and how things proceeded to where they ultimately ended up. Bear in mind that this is all a lot of this is fact based, but a lot of my opinions are those of my own. So understand that by no means do I expect anybody to agree with me, but please feel free to have that dialogue in the comments. The goal here is to create this community where we can all sit back, talk about sports, and have a respectful attitude while doing so. The goal is to, create a fun, friendly environment for everybody to come in and talk about whatever they want to in the world of sports, and also throw those things out there that maybe not everybody has heard about or knows about that we can then dive into. So today, again, we take a look at NBA coaching and the lack of continuity within the league. We're going to take a look, and to really take a true look at this, we got to go all the way back to 2020. That's right, 2020. You remember it pretty well, right? Everybody's inside. Everybody is stuck in their homes. COVID's going around. The NBA bubble is going on. And Nick Nurse, the Toronto Raptors head coach, is coming off of his first NBA title. Of course, a team led by Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, amongst many others. Pascal Siakam. I mean, we can name so many guys that were instrumental to that Toronto team in 2019. Well, we go into the bubble, and Frank Vogel, the head coach at the time of the Los Angeles Lakers, the new look Lakers with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, others. Yeah, that team. They go in and win the bubble championship. They win the championship in the NBA bubble. However you want to word that, however you want to look at it. Well, both of these guys have something in common. There's actually two others. Two others. Sorry, I put three fingers up. I guess that's why it's called Armchair Analysis, because, you know. But Mike Budenholzer, another one, 2021 NBA champion head coach, also falls into this list. And now Mike Malone today. But we go back to 2020. Frank Vogel leads the Lakers on what could be the beginning of a new short-term dynasty. At least that's the thought that everybody has, right? Anthony Davis stayed healthy. LeBron, of course, is still playing as one of the best, if not the best in the game, pushing 40. And now, of course, we know that didn't change anytime in the recent past. But all these coaches win these titles, and as we sit here today, those four head coaches named are all fired. No longer a part of their organizations, at least no longer part of the organizations that they won championships with. Nick Nurse was fired in 2023 following a season of 41-41. What changed in Toronto? Well, it was simple. They got rid of Kawhi Leonard. Kyle Lowry has been, or I think was still there at the time, but was on his way out, had regressed. They'd gotten rid of course, DeMar DeRozan to get Kawhi Leonard. which didn't work out. And then ultimately, they also ended up dealing Pascal Siakam, I believe, after, maybe just after Nick Nurse had been fired, or right around the same time. The Toronto Raptors roster that won an NBA title was not the same, and they never really reached that same potential at any time following Nick Nurse's and that Toronto championship again. In 2023, they were 41-41. Nick Nurse was let go. He eventually lands in Philadelphia. On the 2020, Frank Vogel, the 2020 champs, Los Angeles Lakers. Frank Vogel's fired a year before that. He's fired in 2022 after a 49-33 season. Still pretty successful. Unsure as to why. Frank Vogel's going to come up later on in this conversation as well, because there's another team who has not been winning titles or hasn't even really been close in the last 2 or 3 years as they've been on this little pattern they're on. But Frank Vogel's going to come up in this conversation too. Mike Budenholzer, 2021 NBA championship winning head coach with the Milwaukee Bucks. He was fired in 2023 after a 58-24 record. Why is that important? Is because this team never really regressed. There was not a lot of regression whatsoever. They kept the pretty much same core of guys on the Milwaukee roster this entire time. And because they didn't win a championship in 2023, I think they felt like they needed to make a change. That probably goes into a whole nother conversation and points to a different conversation we can get to later. Mike Malone in 2023, NBA champion, Denver Nuggets. He was fired just the other day, earlier this week, which sparked this entire video. It really kind of sparked the rebranding happening for this channel so soon, because he was fired, and they are 47-32. At least were 47-32 at the time of the firing. But it wasn't just that. The Denver Nuggets are cleaning house completely in the front office too. GM's gone. A lot of different things that are going to be taking place for the Denver Nuggets. But again, all four of these guys, NBA championship winning coaches, who really don't, outside of Nick Nurse in Toronto, and you can go back and look for yourself at all of these changes that happen within the roster, all the changes that happen in the front office. Toronto was not built to succeed and withstand, a 2, 3, 4, or even 5-year run that I think maybe was expected. Maybe Nick Nurse was expected to carry forward. Frank Vogel never really regressed. Los Angeles just thought they needed to take a different approach. They did, and they failed. And I guess now it kind of works out there with, they got JJ Redick. But how do you fumble a guy like Frank Vogel, who, quite frankly, the Lakers haven't been as good as that Vogel-led team until maybe this year, you could probably argue, but I would venture to say that even still, that 2020 through 2022 Frank Vogel-led Lakers teams were better than present day the LA Lakers in 2025 going into the playoffs. Mike Budenholzer, they were 58-24. Again, no true regression. Just they were disappointed at the lack of performance in the playoffs, and it goes again, different conversation. Mike Malone, same thing. We move on. Let's talk about guys who haven't been in the playoffs, or at least or have been in the playoffs, but haven't won championships yet. Yet being the key word, we won't know now. Taylor Jenkins was fired just 3 weeks ago by the Memphis Grizzlies. At the time, they were 44-19. Since then, they are 4-14. They currently sit. It might be 3-14 actually. It is 3-14. They sit at 47-33 on the season at this time. Now sitting barely in that 7th seed. They're actually tied with Golden State and Minnesota for the 6th seed. Golden State currently holding the 6th spot. Memphis and Minnesota holding play-in spots. Taylor Jenkins has led Memphis to multiple 2 seeds in the past couple of years, especially when this team's been healthy. They have been the surprise of the league over the last few years. Why was there a need for a change, especially 3 weeks ago? I honestly have no idea. That was the surprise of the season, really, beyond now Mike Malone being fired. But even before that, Mike Brown fired from Sacramento. Why? Well, they were 13 and 18 through their first 31 games. And if you're a Sacramento fan, you're going to sit here and understand where I'm going with this. They were relatively unlucky. This is a team that had a plus 1.6 net rating, and net ratings are your offensive average, your offensive rating, which is points scored divided by possessions. It's 100 times your points scored divided by possessions. And then it's your offensive rating minus your defensive rating, which is, again, points allowed divided by possessions, 100 times that. They were plus 1.6 in net rating. Since then, that 13-18 start, they're 26 and 23. They are in playoff contention. They currently sit in 9th in the Western Conference standings. That is a play-in tournament spot. But they have not really been the same since. They currently sit at a 0. They sit dead even as of when this research was recorded. Since the firing of Mike Brown, that plus or minus 0, kind of just meaning they're middle of the road. They've been kind of average. They've been a little more lucky. They haven't had weird endings, weird things happen to them down the stretch of games. But other than that, the overall premise of the team has been, I would say, very similar. It's been a similar trajectory, but I would say that personally, I think that there was a better chance for turnaround and maybe even a run in the playoffs with Mike Brown as the head coach. Now we look at Adrian Griffin, who was fired in 2024, the early portion of the season. Well, about halfway through the season, as a matter of fact, just over halfway, which led to the hiring for Milwaukee of Doc Rivers. But he was fired after a 30-13 start, which was on pace for 57-25, which was just one game shy of what Mike Budenholzer did the 2 years before when he was fired. And there's a lot of questioning why that failed and why the relationship between Adrian Griffin and the Milwaukee Bucks did not really flourish the way it should have. Some would say that it's roster changes. Of course, Drew Holiday was traded in order for the Bucks to bring in Damian Lillard. That changes a little bit of how Adrian Griffin wanted to approach the season. Of course, Adrian Griffin put together that Toronto Raptors defense that was suffocating in their 2019 run to the NBA Finals. They would then move forward with Griffin in Milwaukee and put together a really solid defense. Griffin had this idea of how he wanted them to play, specifically centered around Drew Holiday and his ability to guard the perimeter. Well, that trade happens, you move forward from there, and then it really just kind of comes down to stubbornness and the inability to adapt to the things that needed to be changed and the inability to, when making changes, do them efficiently. I really believe that that's where the Adrian Griffin thing fell into place. And then on top of that, Doc Rivers is available, and when you have one of the best coaches in the NBA, that's available and wants to come coach your team, I think you take that opportunity. Does that make it right? No. I don't think that in any of these cases, any one of these teams are particularly right. Only time will tell. But as of right now, it has not worked for any one of them whatsoever. The Adrian Griffin one's probably the most likely to succeed. I mean, we look at the playoff standings. I'm going to take a look while I'm sitting here. I mean, the Bucks are 5th, but they're not in a home court advantage spot. The Denver Nuggets, on the other hand, were in a home court advantage spot. They were 47-32. They now are 48-32. So one game has passed. They were able to get the win. But they currently sit in a home court advantage position, and they were already there. When you do that, when you have your team in position to defend the home court, to then make a run to the NBA Finals where you've been before, where you've won as recently as the 2023 season. What reason do we believe that it can't happen again? And what reason do we believe that it's time to clear house in April as we go into the playoffs again when you have a team that is capable of winning? Tough to say. Genuinely don't know. As for the Bucks, again, you got Doc Rivers. There's plenty of opportunity there. Let's talk about a team that it hasn't been working out for, even more so. And they're on their third coach in 3 years, and it's very possible that we see them on their fourth coach in 4 years at the end of when we walk into 2025, 2026 later this fall. The Phoenix Suns have been the epitome of this if you don't win now, you're never going to win mentality. And putting their coaches in positions where there's not a safe spot to be. Monty Williams was fired after a 45-37 season a couple of years ago. And that was 2 years off the heels of an NBA Finals appearance where they lost to the champion Milwaukee Bucks. They also were coming off their second straight loss in the second round of the NBA playoffs. They decided there was a need for a change. They decided there was enough regression there to make a move. Again, when you look at it, was there really? I don't think so. I think that I think there's plenty of things you could blame for it, but I don't know that it was coaching. Frank Vogel takes over, and I thought that was a heck of a hire. I was really excited to see it work out. Well, it did, kind of, for a season. They went 49-33 in the 1 year that Frank Vogel was there, with a first round exit in the playoffs. Frank Vogel was then fired. They moved on, and now they sign Mike Budenholzer to be their new head coach. And in 2025, with Mike Budenholzer, the regression continues. They are 35-45 as of today, and they are missing the NBA playoffs, even the play-in. They will not be taking part even in the play-in. And again, all of this on the heels of 2021's season where they made it the NBA Finals. The team's gotten older, gained more experience. KD is still just as good as ever. It just hasn't seemed to work out, and I don't really know why. I don't know. Well, I think I do know why. I think it's a lack of continuity. I think it's a lack of somebody feeling like they can go in and really do what they need to do to help the team win games. How much does a head coach matter? I don't know, but I think a continuity, again, I think the ability to keep a team together does actually matter and mean something, especially when you go down through the playoffs and come crunch time in the season. When that experience and that overall knowledge plays a big part and gets you championships. I think the Suns are doing this completely wrong as well, more so wrong than anybody else, and it shows by the fact that the huge regression going through this year. So, the questions I ask at the end of all this, and this video is just taking a look at everything that's happened to this point. The question I ask to you guys: at what point do we sit back and say, enough is enough? And, we don't have much of a say as fans of the sport, as fans of basketball in general. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the biggest NBA fan. But I know enough to sit here and say that we've watched other teams, franchises, go out and allow a coach, a group of players, the ability to go do what they need to do. And they're starting to win games. If Oklahoma City had taken the approach that Memphis or Phoenix or even LA or now Denver has taken, Oklahoma City would not be in the position that they are in right now, which is the number 1 seed by a mile in the Western Conference. They have a 14-game lead over second place. They sit at 66-14. If the Cleveland Cavaliers decided that they did not want to carry forward with the group that they have around them, they wouldn't be where they're at. currently 4 games ahead of the Boston Celtics at 63-17, having the best year they've had since really outside of any era where LeBron's been there. This is kind of my point. Boston doing the same thing, same core of players, same coaching staff for the most part. They continue to win. They continue to be at the top. The Knicks are doing the same thing. They've had a little bit of turnover, been able to keep it pretty much strong, though. The majority of the core is still there and has stayed there. The Pacers are building something very similar down there. Just, again, continuity. That's the word of the day in the NBA is continuity. If you can keep a roster together, if you can keep a coaching staff together, and you can keep everybody relatively happy, you have a chance to make the playoffs and make that run to win the NBA Finals. Should there be a line drawn? 100%. Where is that line going to be drawn? I have no idea. I would love to know. And again, that's what I think something that we're going to have to come back to maybe a year from now, maybe 2, 3, maybe even 5 years from now. Maybe in 2030, we're going to be talking about a whole different style that the NBA is taking. Because they're going to look back and say that this period where coaches are being fired left and right for honestly little to no reason was not the way it should have been. You know, you got to go back to the guys like Greg Popovich who have been able to build their brands and put together teams and do it in their way in a lot of cases. Eric Spoelstra, if their 2011 season happened in 2025, he doesn't make it through the 8 and 9 start that they had with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James, of course. You don't see Eric Spoelstra with the Miami Heat today. A lot of things to think about. I think the NBA, I think a lot of these franchises have a lot that they should be thinking about. Will they? I don't know. Will they learn? Hard to say. Some have not, as we've clearly documented with the Phoenix Suns. But it'll be interesting to see like how the Nuggets progress through the playoffs, how the Grizzlies progress through the playoffs, if they progress through the playoffs at all. I mean, obviously they got to get out of the play-in tournament if that's where they end up. Sacramento, same thing, got to get through the play-in tournament. They've at least had a majority of their season, over half the season, to determine whether or not they were playoff capable and determine whether or not they were going to gel together. A lot of things worth noting throughout the day today. So I thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, let me know what you guys think down below. What are your thoughts on the recent moves, most specifically Mike Malone? But I mean, let's not forget Taylor Jenkins. Let's not forget Mike Brown this season, and let's not forget the last 5 years since 2020. This span of coaching, of championship coaches being fired after slight regressions. Really curious to hear what you guys think. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. All that stuff. It'll keep me in your algorithm, keep me popping up on your guys' recommended pages, or even in your sub boxes. Again, if you do subscribe, it's all free. It just helps me out, helps these videos get out there, and it's just greatly appreciated, to be completely honest. We're going to be back throughout the course of the month of April. I don't know exactly what the schedule is going to look like, and I do apologize that I don't have a solid schedule. I'm kind of just going to fly, not by the seat of my pants, but I'm kind of going to just do this the way that I feel it's necessary. I don't know what it's going to look like or how, but I am super excited to be able to get started, continue, and move forward. I do have plans for a video reviewing the Red Sox documentary that came out. Of course, those of you that do know, I am a Red Sox fan. I'm really excited to talk about it. Finished episode 1. I'm a little late to the party, I know, but I finished episode 1. Gonna work on episode 2 probably later today if I get a chance. So we'll have that review coming out at some point. I also have a video planned where we talk about NIL and how it has affected college sports to this point. And we're still in the early days of NIL and the things that are going to change. The transfer portal, of course. We're still in the very early days of that, but I think it's really important to take a look at where we are at compared to where we were just 4 years ago when NIL was announced that it was going to be a thing. So a lot of different content, a lot of different looks into things that we're going to take. And of course, this is also going to be a place where you can find just a regular podcast to keep up with all kinds of different sports and events going on. I'm going to do a weekly sports kind of recap / update throughout the weeks, throughout the year, and see how and where that goes and what we can do better with it. Keep in mind that this is not the only place you can find me. You can also find me over on Loudmouth Sports Network on YouTube as well, where we have the Loudmouth Sports podcast, of course, every Sunday. The Final Corner, which is a racing show that I get to be a part of every day, Monday through Thursday. And then Clay and BJ working on Immaculate Inning. That's a Monday through Friday program all about baseball and the world of such, where they recently, I think they were just talking about college baseball yesterday, the most recent video that's up on that side of things. So you can find that in the channel. There's a link, not a link, sorry. There should be a button for other channels associated with this channel that you're watching. You can go click on that, leave a subscription over there too if you enjoy the content that's being made there. But yeah, we appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the next video.